Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Album Musings. So over the next few weeks, as we've now moved into November when this video goes out, so November of 2022, I'm going to be taking a look at certain albums that have reached key anniversary or key 10 years anniversary. What did I call it? Decennial, I think that's the technical term. Decennial album releases for November. And one of the picks of around 4 that I'm going to be doing this month is Rage Against the Machine, which we're going to talk about in this episode. So I'm going to have an album musings where we'll just slice and dice the album in various ways, look at some of the singles that were released, see how they did in the, I'm looking at through quite a bit of this through the lens of the UK charts, because as I've said on numerous occasions, that's what I'm most familiar with. And so some of it will be looking at that. We'll also drill down through the Wikipedia listings for various aspects of the album and just see what I can relearn about the album. Although you can see I've put the tabs together for this, I deliberately don't read around it that much, so hopefully the episode is as exciting and interesting for me as it's going to be for you when we look at it. So hopefully I won't get into any problems with YouTube for having pictures of self-immolation, but we'll see. So let's just look at a few little statistics here. So it was released on November the 3rd, 1992. Wow. So that makes the album, is it 30 years old now, I believe. Yeah, that's a good few years ago. And what have we got here genre wise? So rap metal, funk metal, alternative metal, rap rock. We're very much in the 90s, in the era of the CD. So you can see album lengths compared to when we looked at, say, last week's album, which was Stevie Wonder's album, which would have been at that point the primary sort of method of releasing albums would have been on vinyls, on LPs and on cassettes. When I bought this at the time, I actually did buy this on cassette, although subsequently I do have a CD copy of this. Critical success upon release. Rated number 24 on Rolling Stone's list of 100 greatest metal albums of all time. The album peaked at number 1 on the US Billboard Heatseeker charts and number 45 on the US Billboard 200, and has gone on to achieve triple platinum sales certifications in the US. Multiple publications consider it to be one of the best albums of the 1990s. Number of different genres here. We've got rap metal, funk metal, alternative metal, rap rock. If we look down further, we'll see that there were 4 singles released off of this album, and we'll again drill down through those. Looking at their discography, so we've got 4 studio albums. So the first of 4. And we can see here the band throughout their history have been either nominated or won a number of Grammy Awards since around 97. You can see a number of different publications as well. So here's a track listing. So 10 tracks on the album. Bomb track, Killing in the Name, Take the Power, Settle for Nothing, Bullet in the Head, Know Your Enemy, Wake Up, Fistful of Steel, Township Rebellion and Freedom. And then obviously we've got the usual additional tracks that were released on various later CDs. There's quite a few CD and DVD variations there that were available. Personnel wise, so 4-piece. There you can see a couple of additional musicians as well. And then looking at various chart positions, and again we'll go through in more depth from the UK perspective, because that's where I was at the time. You can see sort of how relatively well it did on the different worldwide charts. And then moving down to the certifications. And of course you have to be mindful that in different regions they set their bar at different levels for the different certifications, so gold, platinum, silver, whatever. So you'll see a little bit of disparity there between the figures and the actual certifications. And of course a lot of these certification figures on Wikipedia aren't always kept slap bang up to date. Looking at album of the year, just to give you some idea of from a critical perspective, I'm just looking here at an aggregate website. So if we do look at the popularity of the albums, then yeah, definitely this one rises to the top of the pile. So looking at the UK chart data, in terms of the of albums that have ended up in the UK charts, we've got 4 listed here: Rage Against the Machine, Evil Empire, The Battle of Los Angeles, and Renegade. You can see that on the charts. It's interesting here, the debut album, its peak position was 17, but it's been on the charts for 72 weeks since then. Didn't make number 1. Evil Empire got to a higher chart position, so it got into the top 10 on the album charts, but was only on the charts for 10 weeks since then. So now looking at some album stats. So you can see out of that run that it had on the charts, and that's out of the top 100 in the UK. Initially, its initial run was pretty long, like from the 13th of the 2nd, 1993 to the 23rd of the 10th, 93. And you can see there, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 weeks in, it got to number 17. Then it sort of went down the charts, back up the charts again, back up to 17, and then slowly crept down the charts, but it then went back up again and back down again. But then since then, that initial run, you can see is back in the charts in 94 on a number of occasions. Again, this is the top 100. There was another sort of 10-week run in the lower ends of the top 100. And then over time it's been in and out on various occasions, and there's various reasons why that, one of which may be attributed to one of the singles, which we'll talk about towards the end of the end of the episode, in terms of a certain Christmas number 1 situation. So just to give you some perspective through the UK lens in terms of what else was on the UK charts in the week that it got to its first highest position, so number 17. So there it is. And yeah, I remember this vividly. So we've got Lenny Kravitz as the Unplugged album, Eric Clapton, K.D. Lang. Dark Side of the Moon was back in the charts, although I don't specifically remember that. But then you had things like Automatic for the People, Dangerous by Michael Jackson, Deacon Blue had an album out, The Stars by Simply Red, Take That were in the ascendancy at that point. And there is Rage Against the Machine. And again, just scrolling down. I'm not going to necessarily call out anyone's here, but you'll sort of see what was floating around in the UK album charts at that point in that week. A bit of early Britpop as well there. So the first single was released on November the 2nd. This was in 92. So the single off the album was released before the album was released. But it took a while to get onto the UK singles charts. Let's have a look at that. So there's a chart run here, 27th of the 2nd, 93. So early in 93 was that initial chart run. Oops. Let's go back there. And we'll talk about this at the end. So here's the initial chart run, and then this run in 2009, which I'll explain how that came about if you're not familiar with the whole story surrounding that. You also have to be aware that prior to the band releasing the album that this comes off, there was also a demo released as well. So just so you can see again what was lurking around in the singles charts in the UK at that point. So yeah, there's a lot of bands very similar to Two Unlimited kicking around. You got Suede, so definitely early rumblings of Britpop. We had bands like E17 and Depeche Mode had a single, of course Tasmin Archer. Shaman, very interesting band at the time. Duran Duran had that Ordinary World single out. And then just scrolling down, bands like Thunder. And of course we're getting now into above the top 40 in the singles charts, so a lot of this stuff wouldn't have necessarily got played on the radio when it was down the bottom ends of the charts. I can remember hearing Rage Against the Machine singles in the charts at the time, being played on the radio, but I have a bit of problem remembering what time was it, whether or what not it was early in 93, or whether it was more closer to when the album was released. Next single was Bullet in the Head. So this came out on December the 29th, 1992. Again, well before the album was released. This one got to number 16 in the UK charts. Just did a straight 4-week run in the top 100. And that was alongside the, if you remember, the 5 Live EP. So that was off the back of that big, there was the tribute to Freddie Mercury, and there was like an EP released at some time after that. I can't remember the exact time frame of all of this, unfortunately, and that wasn't the what the episode was about, so I didn't do any research into this particular aspect. But yeah, this one got to number 1. I think at that point when I first heard this, I was, I convinced myself that maybe Queen were going to go on tour with George Michael at some point. But I don't believe that ever happened. Yeah, this is more, what did they call it? I think it was called Eurodance. There's a lot of Eurodance at that point. It's got 2 Unlimited, Ace of Base, Young at Heart by the Bluebells, 1993 release, REM, there you go, it's Capella, Utah Saints, yeah. And then we have Bullet in the Head, straight in at number 16, that single. There's also Walking in My Shoes by Depeche Mode in the charts as well, and Regret by New Order. Oh. I wonder what a 93 version of Parisian Walkways was doing, kicking around. I'm trying to remember if this was around the time when Gary Moore was doing more of his blues based stuff. I think it was. I don't think he'd formed that power trio at that point. There was a power trio that he created called Scars, but I think that was a little bit later. Oh, I remember this. Yeah. Was it John Bush at that point, I think, was the vocalist for Anthrax? I think that's right. That's more 2 Unlimited stuff. And then Bomb Track, which came out on June the 20th, 1993. So still well before the album was finally released. Highest position in the UK singles charts, 37. Only 2-week run. And looking at that week, oh, there we go. Mr. Vane by Culture Beat. So more Euro disco. Living on My Own. Faces by 2 Unlimited. Yeah, Paul Weller released the track Wildwood. His career was having a bit of resurgence then. So, we're very much getting into the era of Britpop. It's Lenny Kravitz, Stone Temple Pilots, The Gun by Sister Mercy. So you can see how musically diverse the UK singles charts was at that point. And there's Bomb Track. So, yeah, this was a fantastic time to be listening to the radio in the UK at that time. Just such a range of musical styles on offer. And then finally they released Freedom, and that didn't chart at all in the UK. So I don't have any stats for that. So in closing, I just do this thing I always like to do in these episodes, where I sort of try and place it on some sort of timeline and interesting other stuff connected with the album. So at that point, personally, I was moving from a career which was more microbiology based to I was doing more sort of stuff involved with microbiological studies and microbiological identity and stuff like that over to computer studies, moving into more computer support and programming and various other things. Of course, I'd already, I suppose, refined a lot of that working within science, because of course you're using computers a lot to do all the number crunching for you. So I thought it'd be interesting just to look as I transitioned into a much more computer focused or computer support focused career, what was actually happening in computer science at that point. So I think I changed careers around the time the album came out, actually late in 93. And I remember, the singles must have already been out, because I can remember we used to have a radio in one of the labs when I was still working in microbiology, and they were playing Rage Against the Machine singles on the radio. But I know I changed jobs before November, so before the album came out. So yeah. So in terms of computer science, we've got first Pentium chips. We've got Mosaic web browser. Oh yeah, Jurassic Park, you remember the CGI in that? And PDF format, wow. First version, June the 15th, 93. And then moving into 94, oh, there we go. Yahoo gets a mention. Launch of Amazon, wow, in July. PlayStation comes out December the 3rd, and Netscape December the 15th. Wow. Now, I did mention that there was something special about one of the singles, Killing in the Name of. So in the UK, and this happened actually after I came over to Canada, 10th of December 2009. So just as I was coming over, there was this, I don't know what you want to call it, like a campaign to get Killing in the Name of to be the Christmas #1. So there'd been a bit of a backlash about X Factor songs continually getting to Christmas #1s. And so there was this campaign launched to sort of prevent an X Factor single from getting to the Christmas #1 for the 5th year running. So we fast forwarded now to 2009. And of course what you've got to remember is in 2009 things like downloads are being factored in. So John Mortimer, and I'll have a link to who John Mortimer is if you're not familiar with him, launched this group, this Facebook group, to encourage people to buy the song in the week before Christmas. Now, there was a bit of a backlash against that, because supposedly the single that they were trying to push off the charts, the X Factor single, was also going to be for charity. So what they did was they encouraged people to give to charity alongside buying the single, to sort of alleviate any pushback because of that. And yeah, it got to #1, so it pushed the X Factor single off the charts. And as a result, Rage Against the Machine did a free concert at Finsbury Park, and featured in the 2011 UK edition of the Guinness World Records under the category of fastest selling digital track in the UK. Wow, 502,672 downloads in its first week. So finally, just a quick link, if you like, or quick note about John Mortimer. So you can see here he's run a number of social media campaigns. I think, yeah, they're all linked in some way to music releases here, and try and, you know, basically, because in the age of downloads and now I suppose streaming as well, it's quite possible to, you know, manipulate, for want of a better word, or force the hand of chance on certain singles. And in this article, I won't go through them in any detail, but it goes through a number of different campaigns over the years. I quite like this one, Highway to Hell in 2013. Again, it was an attempt to get prevent an X Factor single from reaching the number one. So once again, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this particular episode of Album Musings. Bye for now, and I will catch you in the next episode.